can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering Paranormal.
He meddled in things that you keep before. He meddled in things. He meddled in things.
Where will we go next? This phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Muller.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hello, I'm Alex Daikaiju.
I'm Jasmine with
I'm Eli Watson.
And we are
Cryptid
Campfire.
Woo-hoo! We're back, baby.
You know, I do have to say that I'm liking everybody's shirts today. If we want to maybe like show those off real quick. The man, the myth, the legend that is the Ohio Grassman. I got these t-shirts for everybody for Christmas because we finally got together, guys. We finally got together to meet in person, exchange some Christmas gifts, and hang out. It was a couple months late, but you know what? We did it. We had fun.
Yeah, we're rocking our fancy Christmas gifts that we got from Jasmine in March.
It's true.
And today we're going to the Buckeye State.
We are. We really are. We've talked so much before about the state of Ohio and how it's like just the heart of all the weird freaking things that happen in cryptozoology. I think it's very appropriate that we're all wearing these shirts and that Eli is eating the Buckeyes that I also got him for Christmas. Do they taste okay 3 months later?
They taste fantastic.
Great.
Dude, chocolate.
Yeah, what do they taste like?
They taste like chocolate peanut butter.
Good.
Look what you made me do. Now they're all over the place. And you
I'm
know what
sorry.
that means? It means I have to eat them now.
Yep.
Throughout the whole show.
That's okay. Well, we really are talking about Ohio again today. We are going to the town of Chambers, which is located along the Tuscarora. God, I knew I was going to do this. I'm from Ohio and I still always stumble over it. The Tuscarawas River. This suburban city is about 20 square miles with an average population of around 30,000 people. The forest, 30,000. Yeah, 30,000
Wow.
people.
That's a lot.
It is. The forested areas are home to a lot of wildlife like deer, foxes, raccoons, groundhogs, fireflies, and frogs. But the creature of Chambers, Ohio, which is kind of what it's called, it doesn't really have a name other than that. The creature of Chambers, Ohio. Did you guys come across anything else that it is called? Because I didn't.
No, I didn't either.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a fancy name.
Just the hippo.
Yeah.
The Chambers creature.
Yeah. So specifically in Chambers, this creature has been sighted around the wastewater treatment plant. Now, I promise you there's a reason that I'm going to be explaining how a wastewater treatment plant works because it'll come into play later when we talk about like the explanations and the reason that this cryptid or creature may exist. So,
But may I ask you one question?
yes.
Because Jasmine, I had no idea you were an expert on this topic.
Oh. Well, I'm not an expert, but I did talk to my dad, who is an expert, because he also works at a wastewater treatment plant.
In Chambers?
Not in Chambers. I've never been to
Oh.
Chambers. I should be at Chambers. I should have visited Chambers at some point, but we all know how untraveled I am, so don't hold it against me.
Well, you got the Bus and Bessie burger, so that's enough.
Let me take this opportunity to thank y'all for watching Cryptid Campfire and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like this video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now, back to the show.
It was a grilled cheese. It wasn't a burger, but
No, a
I
burger flows better.
I did get the Lake Erie Monster grilled cheese. So for those who don't know, this is what happens at a wastewater treatment facility. So sewage that begins in your home or your business flows into the wastewater treatment plant. And at the plant, the wastewater is treated through various steps to remove solids and other contaminants until it has reached an environmentally safe level to be suitable for disposal or reuse. So water stays flowing through the plant consistently. It goes through grit tanks, fine screens, reactors, clarifiers. Water-soluble polymers are used to remove suspended solids and or contaminants from the water. And the final clarifiers are like these big, gigantic tubs. And that's where this creature has been seen, in the tubs of the Chambers, Ohio wastewater treatment plant. It's been seen in other places too, around and outside of the water treatment facility, but specifically in these tanks. So after all that, the dried waste solids are then kept for 20 to 30 days in large, heated, and enclosed tanks called digesters, where bacteria break down the material, reducing its volume, odors, and getting rid of organisms that can cause disease. So the finished product is mainly sent to landfills, but sometimes can be used as fertilizer. This is all relevant to stuff that's going to come up later. It's just background info that you kind of need to know.
Really?
Yeah.
None of the sightings I came across mention a water plant at all. Just kidding.
You're a freaking liar. What are you talking about? Oh my gosh. Anyway, so what did you guys get for the description of this Chambers, Ohio creature?
It's a rogue hippo. Yeah?
Hippo-like is what I read.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, you
it's
say
described
tomato,
it as-
I say potato.
Oh, you put them together and you get some pasta. A hippo, kind of like a big, round, just big, massive shape. Maybe a couple extra legs than what most hippos are described as having.
Yeah.
Anywhere from 6 to 8 legs, give or take. Which is kind of gross on a hippo, because they're already big and rotund enough.
Dude, they're scary animals. You ever seen how fast a hippo can run?
No, and I don't want to.
It's sketch, bro. You're like, dang, those little stubby legs, man. They move.
Because they're super deadly in the water. They're super deadly on land. And now apparently they're in Ohio. Good God.
Yeah.
As if it wasn't a dangerous place enough already. Let's see. Ooh, apparently it has a little bit of glowing eyes. At night, apparently, get a nice little glow to it. And like a couple cryptids we've talked about recently, it's stinky AF.
I mean, that's to be expected when it's spotted near and around a wastewater treatment plant.
Oh man,
it
taking
like
all
poo-poo.
Yeah, just take a trip down to the digester so you can see the big masses being dried out.
Yeah.
Wait, what do they do with the masses once they're done? Once it's,
I told you, it's sent to landfills or used as fertilizer.
That's right. I am sorry. Okay. I'm sorry.
Well, who knows? To take it somewhere terrifying, they say that a few years ago at Taco Bell they did an analysis, and it was 60% meat, 40% like dirt, like soil substance as a filler. But thanks to the EPA, that's over. But what if all this dried mass from the water sewage uses a filler for Taco Bell? Because it looks the same going in as it does going out.
Is there a Taco Bell in Chambers?
I'm sure.
Are there Taco Bells in Ohio?
Yes.
Yeah, I always think of it as this like mystical land where there's no Taco Bells or Pizza Huts.
Can I share something real quick?
Sure.
Every time I've gone with the crew for Small Town Monsters, like the main crew with Seth Breedlove and all of them, we always get Mexican food. And the first restaurant I went to in Ohio was a Mexican restaurant. I never would have known. I never would have thought that. Although I have to say, it is inferior to the Southern California Mexican restaurant.
I'm very sure that that's true.
Yep.
A couple other things that I got about the description of this creature is that it has like a scrunched face, and some reports say it has sharp knife-like teeth.
How many?
Just like a hippo.
Just like a hippo.
Yeah. So as we get into kind of some of the weird sightings that happened with this creature, there's actually a couple of weird things just about Chambers itself. There's a lot that like goes on and has gone on around the area where this wastewater treatment plant is located. Eli, I think you found something about like a natural spring.
Yeah, there was a natural spring there, supposedly. We can't confirm nor deny, but from what I read on the internet, it was called the Devil's Backbone. Why it was called that, I don't know, because it was a spring in the ground. But it does sound kind of cool. And apparently the Native Americans of the area had warned the early settlers not to go there because of all the evil things associated with the Devil's Backbone. And there's a couple of vague reports of people falling into this spring and drowning or disappearing, but that's it. It's like literally like what I read or what I just said is like what's in the articles. So, I mean, I can't confirm nor deny. So,
Yeah.
And as the story goes, the water treatment plant is built on top of the Devil's Backbone. What does this mean?
How convenient. Oh man. I don't know, but in hand with those claims, like the claims of like people having drowned on the land, there's also rumors that the plant itself is haunted, or that there's some kind of like supernatural element to the land, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well when we talk about one of the like main investigators of this creature. This is not so much like paranormal or supernatural or cryptid like or anything like that. This is just something straight up weird that happened. But so it's just like a lot of negative energy around this area. There was a massive flood in the late 1800s when the residents of the town decided to sabotage the local dam because of the smell and appearance of the stagnant lake, and they claimed that mosquitoes were spreading disease. So several residents had petitioned the state to remove the dam, but company officials had ignored their complaints, stating that sicknesses were happening all over, not just near the reservoir. So they blew it up. And a 10-foot high wave traveled at approximately 100 miles per hour towards downtown Chambers, which was 90 feet lower than the reservoir. The streets became impassable the next day, littered with lumber, warehouse contents, mud, canal boats. Several warehouses were destroyed. The canal banks caved in, and the total damage was, at the time, $30,000 to $40,000, which is estimated at $1 million worth of damage today. But nobody died. So there's that.
Check back tomorrow for an even higher estimate. Anyway.
$1 million. You can't even make 10 seconds of a Marvel movie with money that these days.
Yep. Wow, that's actually crazy. I didn't read about that.
Yeah.
So does this bring us to the first sighting?
I think so.
I mean, there's kind of like, I guess it is the first chronological sighting, but it's the big one. It's the big baby. This is the big cheese.
The big cheese.
The big cheese from Ohio.
The big cheese. All right, let's get into it. May 1st, 1987. It was a good year. I don't know, but we have a fella named Lance Pickering, the wastewater treatment plant supervisor. He was getting into his car, which is a 1985 blue BMW 735 four-door sedan, because, cryptid sightings and their car types.
You gotta have it.
And they're always blue. Is it
My
the
car's blue.
Jasmine, I hate to say it, but you're gonna see something.
Wait,
And-
Jasmine, you have a blue car and you're from Ohio.
I do.
Are we sure you're not a melonhead?
No.
Yeah, the melon head story was in Ohio too, right?
Yeah.
And then if I remember correctly, the Mothman, the one that chased the Scarberries, in their car, that was also a blue vehicle, I think.
I don't
Was
remember
it?
that.
I think it was. And we also know the exact make and model of that car. Anyway, anyways, this is just complete add to the collection. So he was getting into his car to head home after work. He was the last one at the plant. And in the dark of the night, he notices what he thinks is another car in the parking lot because he thinks he sees headlights. And he's like, huh, that's weird. I'm the only one here. And then
Who has to steal my overtime?
yeah, exactly. And then the headlights, they blinked at him. You know, I like to picture it like from Peter Pan, you know, like the alligator.
Oh, yeah. I was like, is there a car in Peter Pan?
No, but because they blinked, you know. Anyways, so he stumbles backwards as this large mass, which he thought was a car with blinking headlights, slowly starts moving towards him. He gets into his car. He tries to start it, but it won't start.
Of course.
So of course. And then the creature starts bumping up against his car. And then eventually he's trying, the car starts and he's able to drive away. And when he gets home, he checks his car and finds paint scrapes and a few dents. So Pickering calls the cops and says, you know, gives them a description of the incident. And we have this quote the closest thing I can say is that it looked like a hippo, hence my hippo theory. And a report was made supposedly, and the cops didn't find anything, but they also didn't really take it seriously.
As one does.
I mean, this guy is saying that he saw a hippo in Ohio and it attacked his car. So I shouldn't laugh at that. That's not funny, guys. This was a traumatizing experience because it only gets worse. And
It does.
As we giggle further.
why are we laughing? I feel like we don't do this. We don't laugh at other people's misery.
Never here at Cryptid Campfire.
Unless it's Bob Lazar. Anyways. So the word of Pickering sighting begins to spread, and the gossip, you know, floats into the ear of paranormal investigator Miles Sultan. Who is Miles Sultan, you ask? I've never heard of him, you ask. Neither have I until today. So yeah, I went down the rabbit hole because Miles Sultan plays a big part in the story, but he like doesn't show up in anything else. And the information we have on him is like it's hearsay.
Limited.
It's limited. No one seems to know where he came from or where he went, which is kind of sus, but this is what we got.
Injured cold like maybe, yeah.
I'd say more like Cotton Eye Joe, because they didn't know where he came from and they really didn't know where he was.
Well, because Injured Cold wasn't like a researcher, so Injured
But he
Cold
was still a character who like showed up, weird stuff happened, and then was gone.
Yeah.
Kind of a creep.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Injured Cold, there's actually rumors that he was friends with John Keel.
Injured
Mm.
cold?
Miles Sultan. I don't think Injured Cold and John Keel ever met.
that would have been a good chapter in Mothman Prophecy.
Yeah. John Keel knew Woodrow Derenberger, who was in contact with Injured Cold. So there's the connection. It all wraps around all the way back to the blue vehicle that the Scarberries were driving when they first saw the Mothman.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. Blue cars and Injured Cold. And actually, in kind of a Keelian way, Miles Sultan believed in ley lines, which we've talked about a couple times now in the Berdinger episode. And I don't think we talked about it in the Mothman episode, but I read about it in John Keel's The Eighth Tower. To summarize briefly, basically, ley lines are like these invisible lines that are spread out across the world that paranormal things seem to be situated around, and that we kind of like know are there without knowing they're there, I guess.
Because like sometimes monuments are lined, like is Stonehenge on the ley line?
Yeah, they think Stonehenge is on it. They think Angkor Wat is on there, and a bunch of other stuff. Like
the Nazca
pyramids,
lines, I think kind of line up too.
Nazca lines, all sorts of stuff. And then some towns too that happen to be situated along ley lines tend to have names like I don't remember the examples. There's examples in John Keel's book, but they all have names that like reference like channels or like lines or even ley itself, which is kind of interesting, you know. And so like that's what Miles Sultan kind of bought into too, and he thinks that Chambers, Ohio is built on a ley line, hence the name Chambers, like a chamber along a line.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are you stretching, bro? I don't know. I need to look into this more. But Miles Sultan, it's unclear. Okay, so he hears about it supposedly through the gossip, and then I'm not really sure if he like reached out to Pickering first, which would make sense, or if he just like showed up at the water treatment plant, because
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because he visited the water treatment plant 3 times in total, and so he first visited the day. And according to the narrative that I read from the website, therealeffingdeal.com, and that's effing as an EFFING. So,
Okay.
They're classy
So
about it.
Clearly very trustworthy.
Yeah, I don't know who runs that website, and it hasn't been like updated since like 2008.
Oh God.
So yeah,
they're right up there with Tweak Town.
Yeah, right up there with Tweaktown. Oh my god, that's a reference to a Patreon episode. Everyone, subscribe to the Patreon, and you'll learn all about Tweaktown.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
you'll get some of the deepest jokes you've never heard.
And so, according to therealeffingdeal.com, Sultan first visited during the day and sought out Pickering, which is why I'm confused as to, I feel like you can't just walk into a water treatment plant.
Yeah, right.
So I'm thinking that
maybe it's like a mall. You just walk right in.
Yeah, I don't know. But then it says he was run off by the manager of the plant who didn't want Sultan poking around with his dowsing rods. So dowsing rods is a form of divination. Basically, you have a rod that's kind of flexible, and people have used it to look for like minerals and stuff in the past, or even water. Basically, it amplifies your intent and like identifies it. So you can think of it as like a metal detector for anything you want, basically. So this, you know, and supposedly it works. Some people say it don't. It's all pseudoscience. I don't really know. But basically, this fool is trying to walk around a water treatment plant with these rods, and understandably so, they don't want him poking around with the rods. So apparently they ran him off. So somewhere after that, Sultan and Pickering had a conversation, and supposedly Sultan recorded the conversation. Where the tape is, we don't know. Again, we don't know much about Sultan himself, so everything is just kind of hearsay. But Sultan comes back to the plant at night when Pickering was the only person there. So they kind of worked out an agreement. And the real effing deal also includes like photocopied portions of Sultan's notes that he wrote. So this is kind of where I get my quotes. But Pickering is doing his rounds, and Sultan walked about the premises. And I'll read this quote. I was walking near the clarifier tanks when my EMF device went off the charts. I hadn't seen anything like it since my foray into the haunted house in Joplin, but this was much, much higher. As I turned to face the ever-growing signal, I heard a noise behind me like a splash. I whipped around and didn't see anything except the EMF signal rapidly declining. When I turned around again, it was gone completely. You know, I kind of like that. He's kind of got some style in there.
Yeah. A little waxing poetic for a paranormal investigator.
I mean, John Keel did the same thing.
Mm.
And Ivan Sanderson literally said
Was
Dracula, right? Like
Dracula. He did.
he did. So according to the notes, Sultan returned to the plant one more time. And it was again a similar situation. Pickering was there, Sultan was poking about. This time, Sultan saw something. He was near the clarifiers again and saw a large hump rise out of the tumultuous mass of gray water.
Yeah.
This being with glowing yellow eyes looked out at me. We stared at each other for no more than 30 seconds when it submerged back into the tank. As it did so, a large hump, what I presumed to be its back, rose and sank into the water after it. It was covered in a shaggy fur of dark green of some kind, but it was so quick I couldn't get a good look at it. I immediately ran for Pickering, but he seemed disinterested in my sighting. As I pressed the matter, he promptly told me to leave and that he did not want to see me again. I think the idea of this creature that approached his car, living in the place of his work, disturbed him. And Sultan later goes on to say that Pickering didn't return any of his calls after that. And that's it. Kind of it. Sultan just kind of disappears. He drops off the radar. The article from the Real Effing Deal did say that he was present for a couple of the 1991 sightings, which we'll get into, but it doesn't expand upon that, nor did the other reports that I read even mention him at all. So I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty disturbing to where, you know, it's one thing to be attacked by a hippo in the parking lot, but it's another thing when it's like in the gray water.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a whole, that's like it territory.
Kind of.
Fun side note though, I think on that website there's like a brief mention that Miles Sultan also looked into the Grassman sightings as well, which I think is pretty relevant for the shirts that we're wearing today.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows how reliable that website is, but
I think it's legit.
yeah.
Hey, listen, when you put effing down, that means you're serious.
Yeah. So that was kind of the like main that sighting from Pickering is like the one that's like the craziest thing that kind of happened. There was a couple things that happened in 1991. There was like a surge of sightings. Nothing as detailed as that. The first one I read about is about two young sisters who claimed to have seen something while they were camping in the woods behind their house. So they lived I don't have names for them, but they lived a couple miles from the wastewater treatment plant and were out playing by the river at night when they saw a large mass floating down the water towards their direction. And as it got closer, they were hit with the overpowering stench of sewage. And because it was dark out, they couldn't quite make out the shape of what it was floating in the water, but as it went by them, it like rotated on the surface and revealed like the two glowing eyes. And so at that point they screamed and ran out of the woods back into the house, where they told their parents what they'd seen, but the adults just assumed that they were still using their imaginations or had spooked themselves by telling each other too many ghost stories. Apparently Sultan also heard about this one and tried to like talk to the girls, but the parents were like, absolutely not. So
Really?
yeah.
Is there more on Sultan out there that we don't know about? I mean, yes, there is, but
yeah.
wow.
Also in 1991, September 17th, Steve Pickering, we've got a new character in the story. Lance's son claimed to have an encounter when he was driving to work. I don't really know much about this one. I think this one's kind of weird. I don't know like what's happening, but apparently he had to swerve out of the way to avoid hitting something in the road and almost caused a crash in the process. And he's quoted as saying, "I'm positive this is the same thing my father saw." But that comes from another dubious source, a tabloid that I don't even know if it's real or not, called the Chambers Chatter. I love the name, but again, I don't know what's happening. But the thing that I'm wondering is like, he must have been driving near the water treatment plant, right? But anyway,
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he just made it up to like give credit to his dad's sighting.
I mean, he might not even really be his son. He could just be lying about that. But anyway.
Yeah, that's weird. The Chambers Chatter.
Yeah.
Whoa. I have one case from 1991 from a woman named Margaret Henson, who heard her dog go crazy in the backyard. And when she went to investigate, she saw a large oval-shaped animal. And at first she thought it was a rock covered in green moss, but then she noticed that it was moving and the moss was actually glowing. And it was dusk and the river ran not through her backyard, but like close to it. And so she saw it meander through the woods and into the river where it disappeared. And when it disappeared, her dog finally calmed down. She didn't feel afraid. She just felt it was the oddest thing she had ever seen.
A lot of this imagery is giving me like My Neighbor Totoro vibes.
Yeah?
Why?
Do you feel that? Like have you seen My Neighbor Totoro?
No.
Oh, okay.
What
Alex,
is it?
you've seen it?
I have, yeah. A Studio Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Just like the like creatures in nature that are really weird, that like are very like infused with nature. Like you see this like I can totally see a Studio Ghibli movie where there's just this giant oval hippo-like creature rolling down the river, and then it just like rotates to like reveal its face to the children, who then scream and run away. Or like, you know, this woman going out to her backyard and seeing just this like thing that looks like a rock just crawling through the backyard and then just plopping itself into the river. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see the Studio Ghibli movie about Ohio.
Yeah.
They say Hayao Miyazaki's coming out of retirement again. Get him on the Ohio project. I was just thinking how crazy that would be. Like, you know, we all like dogs here at the podcast. We all know people who own dogs, or we own a few ourselves. And just like, oh, you know, you let your dog out at night to go to the bathroom. Like, all right, hurry up. time for bed. And the dog just starts going crazy. You're like, what the heck's going on? You're like, ah, hey, stop barking at that rock. And then the rock starts moving back. You're like, oh god. Give
Well,
you kind of a shock.
I think my favorite part was like, stop barking at that moss covered rock. Oh wait, the moss is glowing.
I know there's
Oh,
like rumors of bioluminescence.
Yeah, which
I
didn't
already
come up
told you they
in.
just turned on.
Yeah, I don't know. See, does it look like a glow stick? Because it doesn't. I mean, moss is green, right? Yeah. So it's like it matches the Sultan sighting kind of, but Sultan didn't say that it was glowing.
Yeah,
So
just the
like
eyes.
just the eyes. So is this like a glow stick? Does it look like a
Well, who
glow
knows?
stick?
I don't know.
Maybe it glows when it's outside, and when it's inside the gray water, it's not so shiny.
Gross.
Yeah. That's actually a good point, but I have one more thing I want to share.
Okay.
Ooh.
I found a Reddit post about this
Really?
from the user Darius Likes Coke. Right up there with Black Yoshi 69.
The masters of cryptozoology.
So Darius Coke posted this in the overall cryptozoology subreddit and said, I saw the creature of Chambers, Ohio. And he tells the story of how he was actually a friend of Lance Pickering's back in the day, and they both worked at the wastewater plant. And he says the reason he didn't support Lance's claims at the time, even though he had seen the creature, was because he didn't want his family to think he was crazy, especially after the police mocked Lance for his story and whatnot. And I don't know if we mentioned it or not, there was kind of like a media circus behind it. And they really painted Lance to look bad and like he was like an idiot, you know. And so he saw that and was like, nah, I don't want nothing of that, fam. And then he adds that Lance's reputation was hurt as well because other people that worked at the wastewater management plant began to call him names behind his back and talk smack about him. And so this information is interesting. He says that Lance left his position in 1991, the same year all the sightings happened.
That's true.
I am smelling some Scooby-Doo here.
What?
Look, it only makes sense. Lance saw something real. No one believed him, so he quit. He quit, and then he dons the costume
Oh my god.
to
You think
make
that's,
people believe.
that's the theory you're working with? Is that the Chambers creature is Lance Pickering in a suit?
Just the 1991 sightings. The 1987 sighting is real.
Okay.
So Darius Likes Coke writes that after Lance left, he saw the creature twice. Once in a clarifier, and he said that it looked like a large tick covered in brown hair, which
is again gross.
It is gross, but the hair idea, or the I guess under a different lighting, right? You could say that it was green in one lighting and then brown in the other, especially if it's covered in poopy water.
Oh my gosh.
I hate that this is what it is.
We can't escape the poop. And he said it was spinning around almost as if it was playing. And when he got closer, it submerged and didn't come back up. But that night, he had a dream about the creature. And he writes, I never saw yellow eyes when it was in the clarifier, but in my dream, it was watching me with bright yellow eyes. I was just doing my job like regular, but this thing watched me the whole time, and I knew it, and I couldn't stop what I was doing.
Oh, he had a dream where it was his supervisor.
So after Darius likes Coke. There is one more sighting. So keep in mind that sighting was in 1991-ish. So that adds another to the 1991 wave of sightings. And there really hasn't been much since then, except for this one that came from BuzzFeed. And it says that it was in 2007. And the person who reported it said Michael, or other sites say Michelle, saw something large and hair covered crawling while looking for their dog that ran away from home. And that is all we know. So Michael or Michelle,
Dogs.
if you're out there,
Hey,
please come forward with your story.
We'll have you
tell
on
us
the
about the
podcast.
hippo.
Yeah. Which, it's funny that the word hippo was used. I mean, I guess if you're talking size, hippo probably was the easiest thing to describe it, and the fact that like hippos live in the water and on land, like we were mentioning earlier. But like looks wise, I don't think it actually resembles a hippo whatsoever, except for maybe the fact it's chunky.
Oh,
That's
dang.
not what Lance said.
Lance said it resembled a hippo.
I know.
Anyway, so now we get into the juicy part, which is like the explanations. Like if this creature is real, if this is actually happening, if people are really seeing this hippo-like creature with 6 and or 8 legs in the water clarifiers and whatever, like why? Okay. So the reason I gave so much detail at the top of the episode about how a wastewater treatment plant works is because the theory is that this creature is a mutated tardigrade, aka water bear. Now, water bears, cool name, also known as moss piglets, which I think came from South Park, maybe not. I don't know. But water bears are real. They actually exist. They're bug-like animals that are only about 1 millimeter or less in size. So they have a well-developed head region and a short body composed of 4 fused segments, with each segment bearing a pair of short, stout, unjointed limbs, generally terminated by several sharp claws.
Right. I'm going to point out one problem with this theory.
Okay.
The size doesn't line up.
Okay. I said mutated. You didn't let me finish.
What she was gonna say was, you see, there's 2 types of pterygades in the world. There's the microscopic one, and then there's the mega water bears, which are the size of Volkswagen BMWs.
So listen, in wastewater treatment, water bears may prey on bacteria, plant matter, algae, or maybe carnivorous, preying on nematodes and rotifers. So like they're crucial to the process of wastewater treatment. Like they're a part of the system. And the thought is that one of these creatures evolved and grew to be an enormous size because of an experimental polymer, which I mentioned at the top of the episode, that was used in the process of the wastewater treatment plant. So, you know, it's your typical biohazard waste mutated organism that is now a monster because of the sludge it was living in or whatever. But even more interesting than this theory is just the plain existence of water bears, because let me tell you, when I was doing the research on these things, this was almost more flabbergasting than any of these stories, because water bears can live for up to 60 years, can survive for up to 30 years without food or water, and are able to endure temperature extremes of up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, the deep sea, and even the microgravity and elevated radiation levels of space. This is real. This is not LOL, we're joking about some mutated animal sci-fi thing. This is real. Water bears survive extreme conditions by going into a state of suspended animation. Essentially, they can dry up and survive for years without water carried around on the wind, the little ones.
Freak shows, dude.
And so when they do come into contact with water, they revive and get on with their lives as though nothing happened. So I don't know. It just makes me think that if there was to be a large mutated water bear living somewhere in the water treatment plant, it probably could stay hidden for a really long time. I mean, the employees aren't swimming in the clarifiers. You know what I mean? Like the clarifiers are just doing their own thing. So there could totally be something enormous in there that they don't even know about. And, every once in a while decides to go for a stroll along the river or like go out to feed or something.
Yeah,
like that.
how does that work? How does it get out of the clarifier and like walk around?
Well, from what I understand, I looked at some overhead like satellite images of a water treatment plant. It's not like one big building that everything is inside. So like
Yeah.
it's likely that it could just come out of the tank and just already be outside and like
Oh, whoa.
trot off.
Just start
waddle
spilling the
off.
gray water everywhere with it.
Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't see pictures of the Chambers, Ohio water treatment facility. I just looked at over the head satellite images on Google. So that's
Really,
the theory.
water bears are God's perfect creatures.
That's the theory.
Guess so.
They're freaky little things, man. They're freaky.
I don't know what it looks like.
Oh yeah, take a look at it.
Yeah, you should
Go
Google
look
it.
at the little baby.
Oh, these things. They're gross.
Yeah.
Hey,
Now
I'll
imagine
stick
one
with
of
my regular
those.
bears.
Imagine one of those the size of a hippo.
Here's the
coming at
problem.
ya in a
It doesn't
parking
look
lot.
like a hippo.
That's what I've been saying. But it's chunky.
But they're
well,
But Lance
we
said
are
it was a
talking about
hippo.
Ohio. Ohio people don't know what hippos are, right?
listen. Lance is in the suit, guys.
Oh god.
He's in the suit.
Yep.
Where's Fred and the gang? Scooby and the gang? They're gonna pull the mask off and be like, Lance Pickering. Yes, I wanted everyone to believe my story, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
Yeah. But then they're like,
Well-
but why did you dress up as a giant monster and crawl around in gray water for 32 hours at a time? Well, don't you know, the water treatment buried on an old water spring, and if I can bottle that, I can make a fortune.
That's disgusting.
There's always the convoluted plot to where they have to dress up as a monster to get the
Yes.
natural resources.
You're right. That's what it is. The devil's backbone.
Well, that does tie into one of the other theories, which is just that it's a paranormal or interdimensional being that pops in and out whenever it wants. Like,
Okay, but that's everything. That's the
I
catch-all.
know. I know.
Well, here's that crazy time tour. It's like we were talking about ley lines, and there's towns. I think there's a place like Hell, Pennsylvania, where they say like the ground sometimes cracks open, or there's where the ley lines line up, and it's like, oh, that's where interdimensional portals open up. So they open up in spooky old towns. They open up in castles, or sometimes they open up in water treatment centers, and cryptids are just falling into the gray water. Sasquatches, they're interdimensional. They're just flopping into it. Who knows?
Oh my god. Flopping in.
Gross.
Oh,
Well, that's the creature of Chambers, Ohio.
yeah, we put one in the chamber today.
Oh Lord. So I think it's time for our piece de resistance, the cryptid battle. Who's got that for us today? Because it ain't me.
It ain't
Yo,
me.
yo, it's me with
It
my
was
patent
supposed
and
to
special
be.
book.
Whoa.
Yeah, I'm filling in for Eli today. So everyone, you ready for the Cryptid Coliseum?
Yes.
Woo, 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 here we go.
Woo, woo, woo. Woo, woo, woo.
Camera pans over a lush green forest. Vines and bright flowers adorn the landscape. A flock of pterodactyls swoop and dive over a great body of bright blue water. This is paradise. This is Ohio, or at least it has been described to me. And floating atop the lake of teeming life, the Colosseum stands brightly in the blood red sun. We zoom in and we see the spectators as they scream, they shout, and they yell for blood. They yell for violence. Some are even adorned in t-shirts that say, "I saw Sasquatch scored to death, and all I got was this t-shirt." Sell them at the gift station at the Coliseum. And we zoom in into the killing field, and the gate opens. Lumbering out the size of a V8 Volkswagen, 6 to 8 legs, glowing eyes, glowing a little bit by luminescence. It's the Chambers creature of Ohio.
I like the idea that we still don't know how many legs it has.
They keep zooming in and out. It moves a little too quick.
Yeah.
Can't quite count them all. And across the way, the gate opens. And from that tunnel, we hear a low rumble as it grows into a more angry, full sound of a V8 engine as a blue Granada peels out.
Oh no.
The Mountainhead screaming and shouting and gibbering as they get ready to face the other creature of myth of Ohio. Two creatures, or I should say the creature stands off the blue Granada. They square off, and the Mountainheads punch it, and they go fast. They're going 50, 60, 70, and right as they're about to collide with the Ohio Chambers creature, they pass through it and crash into the wall.
Whoa.
Why, you ask? Well, because it's a hoax, baby. April Fool.
April Fools.
Oh man, yeah. April Fools, guys. We made all of that up.
Yep.
Yeah, woohoo. It was pretty fun, right?
This was our first creative effort in playing a prank on our listeners. How'd we do? Let us know. It was really fun though. So we're gonna have a blog post up about this whole process, about like how we came up with this information, how I collaborated with my dad to get information, how we based this off of like real towns,
how blue cars show up in a lot of cryptid sightings.
Yeah.
That is actually a fact though.
That is true. And water bears are real. Like that's freaking crazy. Like that I'll have a lot of links on the blog about that stuff too. I'm gonna write the blog this week. Or by the time this comes out, I will have already written the blog and included lots of like links to articles about water bears. Shout out to my dad, Jay, because he was the one who like gave us the whole working theory. He was like, here, let me tell you, this is what happened. And he was like, it's a water bear that got mutated by an experimental polymer that was used by the blah, 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 blah. That was pretty funny. Yeah,
it was genius, I say.
I don't know how, I feel like we did okay, but I also feel like we probably didn't trick too many people.
Why?
I don't know.
What gave it away?
I don't know.
The matching shirts?
Speaking of the matching shirts, this was not planned. We each put this shirt on without communicating with anybody. We got on this call and I lost my freaking mind.
It's so funny, dude. It's really funny.
We all independently chose to wear this shirt for this episode.
Yeah.
Anyway.
How does that make you feel?
But yeah, guys, I hope the listeners aren't mad at us. First of all, we're coming out here at the bottom telling you that it was all a hoax. With the hopes that, because what we don't want is like this to spread and like it becomes like people think it's real. Can you imagine? But yes.
Hey, did you guys hear about the new Chambers creature that showed up on the cryptid wikis?
Oh my god, imagine. But no, this was something fun that we wanted to do. This is just something fun.
Don't give Darius Loves Coke any ideas.
We've been wanting to do an April Fool's episode for, I mean, I think ever since we started the podcast. It just so happens to work out that April Fool's is on a Friday this year. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And this the year of our Lord 2022.
Happy April Fool's, everybody. I hope we tricked you. And if we didn't,
Then
whoops.
sign up for the Patreon. We'll
Yeah.
try it again later this year.
We'll tell you what's not a joke is our thanks for Patreon supporter Felicia Kelly Trent.
Yep.
You've been subscribed
yeah.
since February of 2021.
That's awesome.
Thank you for being part of the
FKT.
Yeah, thanks for being part of the campfire. It's growing every day.
You rule.
If anything, I at least hope that if you were listening to this episode, you giggled at least once. If you laughed at least once at anything we said, that I feel like we've succeeded. We didn't even have to trick you. If you knew the whole time and you were like, this is some BS, did you laugh at least?
Yeah, did you have a laugh? And if you want one final giggle, 11,000 gallons of waste per truck are used in water treatment centers. 3 trucks per shift, 3 shifts per day. That's almost 100,000 gallons of poopy per day in the one town.
Yeah, it is.
And that time could be yours in America.
Yeah. And that's a fact. That's information that came from my father, who works at a water treatment facility. So like, it's crazy, but
That's nasty.
yeah.
Oh well, it's the
Yeah.
the stinky truth.
Yep.
Hey man, there's about 8 billion people on this planet, and I'll go to the bathroom a couple times a day.
Yep.
Oh man, I should have said that's the crappy truth, but anyway.
Crappy truth. But thank you
All
for
right.
listening. I hope that this wasn't too much of a disappointment. I know that some people aren't big fans of this type of thing, but we've been wanting to do it. We wanted to have some fun. It was a fun process. We found a groove with some of the stuff that we were coming up with throughout this, and I'll read about it in the blog. Read about it in the blog, guys.
Yeah.
And next week we'll come back with something that we actually researched rather than just BS.
Yeah, next week we'll come out
whoa.
with something that's real. Oh wait, that you can contest everything we've talked about. Anyways.
Uh-oh.
We want to thank you guys for listening to Cryptid Campfire. We really appreciate it, and we'd appreciate it even more if you left us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps us rank, and more people can find us and join the campfire. If you haven't yet, consider following us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. That's at Cryptid Campfire on all 3. Be sure to check out our website, cryptidcampfire.com, where you can find campfire t-shirts and other merch, as well as our weekly blog, expanding upon what we talk about in the episodes. If you've done all that, consider subscribing to our Patreon page. $5 a month gets you access to exclusive episodes and wallpapers that haven't been released anywhere else. For the price of a coffee, you will be directly helping us make this show the best it can be. If you want to follow our hosts, you can find their personal profiles on Instagram at Jasmine May With, that's JasmineMaewith, at Alex Daikaiju, that's at AlexDaikaiju, and at the Eli Watson. Thank you everyone, and see you next week.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at straightupstrange.com.